Hello and welcome. I'm Kim Denyas. I'm a spiritual director in Easton, Pennsylvania, and we are opening the book of Exodus this morning, or today, wherever you are. Exodus finds the entire clan of Israel in Egypt, in the best land. They've been there for 400 years. They went down as 70 people, and the text is going to tell us there's 1,000,000. That might be a bit of an exaggeration. I'm not sure. I wasn't there, but that seems like a lot of folks. But we know that they were told to multiply. The Bible tells us in a very interesting text that a Pharaoh comes to the throne that knew not Joseph nor Joseph's God. Joseph had been instrumental in saving Egypt from a famine. This Pharaoh fears the Jews, and he sends out an edict that all male children are to be killed upon birth, of Jewish children are to be killed. The midwives save the day and do not do this. Out of this edict, Moses is saved and raised in the Pharaoh's castle, Pharaoh's home, if you will, by his daughter. So that's where Moses is going to come from. He's going to be a combination of Jewish roots and yet Egypt's firm understanding. He ends up killing an Egyptian, murdering him, for abuse to the Jewish slaves. There's slaves at this point. That makes him flee for his life. And that's the important bit. Another important bit is that the Jewish men and women are absolutely in forced slavery, forced labor, whatever word you like, in Egypt. Moses is gone for about 40 years from Egypt. During that time, he marries and he has children, and he is out as a shepherd with his flock, and a bush begins to burn and it is not consumed. This captures Moses' attention, and God begins to speak to him. Moses, it's a great little story. So it's about the third chapter of Exodus, it is the third chapter of Exodus. Moses turns to explore this bush. He sees this bush on fire, not consumed. And when God sees that Moses has turned towards the bush, God turns towards Moses, and God calls him. And we're going to see a couple men that are called this way by their name. I think God calls us that way. And Moses answers, "Here I am." It's a great prayer. "Here I am, Lord," and God answering you, "Here I am." But anyway, that's another topic. So Moses and God begin to have a conversation about the people in Egypt. Bottom line, God wants Moses to go get them and lead them to the promised land. Now you may recall that when they first went, when all the children of Israel, or Jacob, all his boys went to Egypt, God said to Jacob, "Go ahead and go down, and I will go down with you, and I will bring you up again." Okay, so they're going to go back to the promised land. They're in Egypt right now. Canaan, Israel, maybe a few hundred miles away? I'm not sure. I need to look that up, and I didn't. But anyway, you're going to come out of there, but go ahead and go down, the Lord said. So they go down. Moses doesn't want to do this, first of all. We're going to see with some regularity, God tends to call those that are either the least equipped and or the least willing. And Moses gets both of those. He is not willing to go, and he feels ill-equipped because he's, quote, slow of speech. We don't know what that means. Maybe he doesn't process as fast as he feels other people do. Maybe he's more thoughtful. We don't know. But he doesn't want to go. But God says, "I want you to lead my people out. I want you to bring them to a land flowing with milk and honey." Finally, Moses goes. Okay, in the short run, he goes. Interesting bit here. The Bible tells us God hardens Pharaoh's heart against Moses and against the children of Israel leaving. It's going to take 10 plagues to get them out of there. My dad used to say God has a ways and means committee. God's ways can be as mean as they need to be for God to get his way. Kind of a harsh understanding of God. However, we do see a bit of that here in what's going to happen. God's going to send 10 plagues, and they're each kind of, in their own way, nasty. The first one is he's going to turn all the water into blood. Egypt's pretty dry. Okay, so just think about that. The next one is frogs, then gnats, flies. The cattle are going to have a deadly disease. boils, thunder and hail that's destructive, locusts, darkness. And then finally, the last one, and this almost harkens back to the midwives, every firstborn male in the land will die. And at that point, Pharaoh lets them go. Pharaoh releases them to go into their promised land. So they leave. They leave taking gold and silver from their neighbors. There's a gorgeous little tiny verse tucked in there where they are told, the children of Israel are told to go to their neighbors, their Egyptian neighbors, and ask for gold and silver. And they leave with a fair amount. We can tell from what's going to happen or what they're going to do with it. They go out, they are led by cloud during the day and fire by night. So cloud would allow them to have some shade in the hot sun. Fire would allow them to have some warmth at night. God's provision, right? They get out and they have a Passover. They celebrate their Passover. And they get to the Red Sea. Before they do, they are already complaining and longing to be back in Egypt. They don't like the food. They don't like the water. First, they don't like the water. Then they don't like the food. They get to the Red Sea. And I have often thought, and I've mentioned it here before, that doubt and faith are almost twins. They're kind of interlocked. I see them kind of like this, kind of locked together. By the very nature of having faith, there are going to be things we doubt, I believe. And we see this in the children of Israel. They get to this massive water, and God says to Moses, strike the water, step out into the water. The water parts, they cross, and then Moses commands the water to come back together, and the army from Egypt is drowned or flooded. I just want to do some quick highlights. We're headed to the 10 Commandments being written, the first set of them, and I'm going to stop there. But just as they head out, a couple things that happen that they're going to forget very quickly, and God is going to remind them to recall the wondrous things God has done. But they have bitter water, and they complain to God, and they get sweet water. They complain to God that they don't have enough food, that the food was better in Egypt, and God sends them bread with coriander and a taste of honey in it. Sounds kind of refreshing. They complain to God that they're tired of the bread, and God sends meat. Water comes from a rock. And God says in Exodus 19, if you keep my commandments, if you serve only me, you'll be my treasured possession. You'll be a priestly kingdom and a holy nation unto me. That's what God promises them. Now they're going to be so human, and they're not going to be able to keep that covenant. And we're going to see the great mercy of God. But while Moses is up getting the 10 Commandments and some laws from God, they're going to take, the children of Israel, melt all their gold and silver and build gods, lower G, little god idols, the golden calf. Aaron's going to do it for them. He's another man that will come on the scene. So we're going to end there today. That seems like a good stopping point. Moses is up the Mount Sinai getting the commandments and some laws, and the children are down below, they're adults, down below being disobedient. I hope this is insightful for you. I hope you enjoyed kind of looking at this, and maybe you see yourself. Maybe you've complained to God, which is fine, God can take it. But maybe you need to start looking for how God's answered. Maybe it's time to recall how God has answered in other times and bring that to your memory, or share it even with a friend. I pray these words encourage you, draw you nearer to God. Thanks so much for listening. Bye now.